Communication competence, as we see in the experiences that we have each day as we interact with our friends and family, can become quite difficult. We often think that communication should be simple. It should be straightforward, but in many cases it becomes more and more complicated the older we get. So communication competence truly is a difficult task. So let's define what it is so that we can understand how to progress in this area. So if we were to define communication competence, the first thing we would want to keep in mind is that, number one, there is no ideal way to communicate. If you remember the idea of communication as a transactional model, we have a field of experiences, we have different perceptions and ideas and circumstances that impact how we communicate within a certain relationship. So one way will work great for one, and in another circumstance it'll be ineffective or actually harmful. So there's no ideal way to communicate. Two, competence is situational. You can be competent in one situation and completely incompetent in another situation. For example, you may be a great communicator at work or at school, but struggle significantly as a parent or as a significant other. Also, competence is relational, and this connects sort of to the situational example. You can have great competence with your best friend and communicate really well with them, but struggle with your boss because of the nature of that relationship, the impact that that relationship has on you as a whole. And then also, number four, competence can be learned. We are fully capable of becoming a competent communicator the more we work at it. Now, the characteristics of a competent communicator are multi-layered. We start with the fact that all competent communicators have a wide range of behaviors. They are able to grab from multiple behaviors in order to understand and apply information in the most effective way. They also have the ability to choose those most appropriate behaviors based on a number of things, based on the context in which they are experiencing the situation, based on whatever goals they have to achieve. Do they want to persuade? Do they want to inform? Do they want to entice? What do they want? They know those goals and they know how to choose appropriate behavior based on those context of the situation and of the goals that they and the other person have for communicating. And then also they are able to choose the most appropriate behavior based on what that other person knows. What level of confidence does the other person have in the relationship? And number three, another characteristic is that they have the skill that is needed to perform those behaviors. So they've learned about tactics and tools. Getting this information is what you attain when you take communication courses and when you learn from experience. Number four, they have cognitive complexity. So they are able to think in multiple layers. They're able to see things from various perspectives and to understand how their experiences and their environment and all of that impact their communication patterns. Another one is that they have empathy. Difference between sympathy and empathy is they're actually able to put themselves in their shoes of the other person. If you are sympathetic towards a person, you can feel bad for them, but you don't really know exactly how they feel. You can't put yourself in their shoes. A competent communicator can imagine themselves in that situation. Whether they actually ever were or not is irrelevant. They could feel those feelings. They can imagine what it would feel like to experience that situation. Number six, they are self-monitoring. So they are able to keep awareness of how they're behaving and why they're behaving that way and make adjustments as needed. So you take personal reflection time, you're able to see how your communication impacts others and adjust as needed. And then finally, another characteristic is that they have commitment. Commitment to the other person in the relationship that they are communicating with, and commitment to making the message clear, concise, and understandable to that individual. So they are not going to just give up because it becomes difficult. They have commitment to make sure everything is clear and concise and understandable. Those are the characteristics of competent communicators. How does that change based on the culture that you're in? Now, in co-cultures, which would be cultures within cultures, like, for example, the United States would be considered a very large culture in and of itself, but within certain regions or within certain families even, we have different cultures that interact and meld. So understanding that, knowing that co-cultures exist and can impact how communication occurs, that is important for understanding intercultural communication and being competent in it. Also, number two, make sure to learn specific cultural rules. If you're going to interact within different cultures, keeping in mind that culture does not necessarily mean a different region. It could, like I said earlier, mean a different family. It could mean a different gender. It could mean a different lifestyle. All of those things, a different political background, a different religious background, they all impact how we communicate competently within these intercultural communication instances. So try to understand the rules. Try to see the perspective of that culture. Be motivated to understand and learn from that culture and be able to use what you learn to make yourself as clear and competent as possible. Tolerate ambiguity. Competent intercultural communicators know that they're not going to understand every single little thing. Know that that is going to happen and accept that, and always try to learn. As we said in number 2, learn those rules, learn and understand. Never judge. Be open-minded. Number 5, understand that, again, because you don't know everything, be open-minded to understanding the perspective of the other person. Think, for example, of somebody who is a different political background from you or a different religion from you, or maybe you're religious and they're not. Be open-minded, ready to learn from those perspectives and see where they're coming from. Number 6, their knowledge and skill are multi-layered. So they have a desire to observe and understand. Those are passive behaviors where they're trying to understand where that person comes from, and also engage in active strategies by literally asking questions and trying to attain knowledge based on the answers they receive. And then again, they also disclose information themselves. So they're able to reveal information in order to gain more information from that experience. These are all characteristics and ideas of an intercultural experience.